Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Saving Private Ryan. So, uh, interesting thing. So, Matt Damon was to go on and talk about Saving Private Ryan on how, like, Steven Spielberg had this, like, perspective or this, like, he was thinking that, like, Matt Damon would probably be far too skinny to do the Saving Private Ryan role or the Private Ryan role, and Matt Damon was to show up and have Steven look at him. He's like, "Oh, like it seems like you're a lot bigger than you were before," because I guess Steven didn't see, of course, the Good Will Hunting movie. He went on and saw like Courage Under Fire with, I think Matt Damon was with Mel or Meg Ryan in that movie. I think it's been a while since I've seen that film. And so, like, Matt Damon goes on and talks about that, like, during his most iconic GQ, whatever things. And so you can get a little bit more detail and stuff about that. As per usual, for every Tom Hanks movie, man, does this guy, like, remember a lot, retain a lot. It's wild. Just go ahead and see any interview that he's ever done, and like especially like the podcast ones, like the David Spade and Dana Carvey ones, where he's just like rattling off stuff about SNL, like the history of it and whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, just the stuff that he just like retains. It's amazing. Um, but so with that said, let's talk about Saving Private Ryan. This, of course, war film that was like, there's so many different ranges of emotions within this movie. There's like the brutality of the opening scene and the opening moments of this movie, and like the hope and the moments of people going on and just remembering certain people, like Vecchio and the parts where they were to go on and try to like poetically like understand what's all going on, and how they're like really just like, well, I guess we're just stuck here and we have to go on and stay here until uh like we finally get reinforcements. So with that said, I enjoyed this movie, and like I was just so worried afterwards of like the aftermath of this just going on, and be like, yeah, I don't know how anywhere close I can be very detailed about this, so I'm just gonna try in some roundabout way to just talk about this film until I deem um, it okay enough to just call it a day within this one, because it just seems that I'm like, well, I know what's going on with a lot of characters, but like there's sometimes where like I don't know if I can have the real detail about like the villain side of things and what like the hero side is going on with the villain side and so on and so forth. Um, because you only can really see like one side of it where they're kind of throwing stuff, they're shooting stuff at certain people, and like a lot of it all kind of like is to be a lot within this film. So with that said, we talk about the beach in Normandy, or just Normandy in most of this film, and at some point we have a movie that uh, is to have a number of people be killed in battle, and so it seems that there is to be one family who is to need one of their sons to go home, and that just so happens to be Matt Damon's character Ryan. And so we have uh, a whole set of military men that are to be sent out to retrieve Ryan and have him go home. And so that's like the most basic part of this movie is just rattling off that information. But so conveniently, this movie right now, for I don't know how long, is going to be on Netflix. And so with that said, um, I enjoyed this movie. Like there's certain other kinds of movies like this that eventually would want to go into, like Dunkirk, or or Band of Brothers. Like Band of Brothers is really interesting, and so maybe at some point I might go into those. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but hey, at the end of the day, this movie was so like you get such a wide variety with this film. Um, and that opening scene though, that opening just battle scene was like, oh my god, just like we had the one moment where the guy was get freaking hit in the helmet with a bullet, and then he weirdly decides to take off the bullet and just like whoo, and then he ends up getting pat in the head, and I'm like, why take your helmet off? Why? Um, but like I think some people were to just go on and just be just kind of like their bell was rung and they were just kind of like what's going on, I don't know where I am right now, and they just needed a second, and that eventually ended up having them getting hit with a bullet just because they were just kind of disoriented for a second there. So yeah, so currently this movie is conveniently on Netflix. Go ahead and check it out if you haven't. I would recommend it. Grading wise, like I don't know, like I feel like this is like I would say that this is an epic film. A very beautiful piece. Especially when they go on and like they have those stories like towards the end where we of course have guys like Upham, who is kind of telling the guys what the French girl is singing about, and we have Rybin, who is telling that story about the girl who is to try to be fitted for a bra that obviously like she shouldn't like be wearing. That it really should be like a size further up. And then Ryben has had that story about like the woman saying like, well, hey, like if you're out there going and dodging these bullets, think of these. I enjoy that story. That was fun. So with that said, because we're about to just kind of tee it up and go into spoilers anyways, I think it's about that time to just go into normal spoilers. So let me know in the comments below how you felt about Saving Private Ryan. If you liked this movie, if you hated it. Some people may have mixed feelings about this movie, and for whatever reason, I'm just gonna recant and whatever about this film. So with that said, it's about that time again to go into this coveted double five time territory because it's spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you just spoil this movie. So in the beginning of the film, we have these landing crafts, and again, I may not be always in detail, but a detail here and there about the film. So these landing crafts are going on and dumping all these men off as we have this beach scene. So we go on, and all these guys are desperately trying to make it to these Germans to like trying to take out their bunkers and their spots where they just really have the high ground. And so we have these guys that are going on, and like men, as soon as they're like dropping out of these landing crafts, man, are they getting pelted. Even in the water they're getting killed. And so you have people desperately like like you don't even know if they're really gonna have like actual like anything on them at this point, because there's just like there's carnage everywhere. So we have it where Captain Miller is telling people to jump into the water to fall off to the side, because if they're like going straight forward, they're gonna get pelted with bullets. So as well as like Captain Miller is telling people what to do, as well as Horvath is also telling people what to do, the sergeant. So people are going on and just trying to like hope that they can not get shot up here. and everybody's just thinking that they're gonna get freaking killed here. So we have it to where it seems these guys are to find a point where uh, they have some sand where they can kind of see what's going on and be able to kind of get ready for what their plan is. And so we have at one point where Captain Miller is turning to this guy who has this communication device and is telling him what to do and telling him what to say. And so when Captain Miller is turning back around to talk to this guy, his face is gone. Like his face was caved in. I'm like, oh my god, this is freaking brutal. So they go on and they have this device to go and try to take down this bunker, and eventually they make it further through, and they start to go on and take this base over, and some Germans are to surrender. And so we have at one point where Caparzo, who is Vin Diesel's character, uh, is handing Mellish, who is to consistently say that he's like the Jewish character. So uh, Caparzo is giving Mellish this Hitler youth knife, and Mellish is crying and just tears in his eyes because of like these guys having this kind of knife on them. So at some points when the Germans are surrendering, we have Mellish who's going on and showing his necklace where it shows that he's of a Jewish person and so on and so forth. So we go on and they are to kind of clear this base, and so after that we go on and we have Captain Miller, who is to go on and talk to the Lieutenant Colonel Anderson and mention about all of the things that he was a spot upon this map, and let him know about everything that's going on there, and is to mention that at the beach there was 36 casualties of like guys who had died, and injured there was about double that much. And so Lieutenant Colonel Anderson is to give Captain Miller a mission. And so now we have the War Department. The War Department is going on and sending all of these letters to all of the soldiers who are to go on and perish via this war, and come to find out that they had to send so many letters to one woman who had to have lost a number of sons, and that Ryan is James Francis Ryan, is to go on and be their last son. And so General Marshall is to realize that this is to, of course, happen here. And so General Marshall is to go on and take this letter, that at the end of it we find out that it's Abraham Lincoln who was to give this letter to a woman who had lost her sons and was kind of in his own way trying to like help this woman through this troubled time and so on and so forth. And so after General Marshall is to go on and read this letter, which most of it, or a pretty good chunk of it, he memorized, to where he's like, well, hey, like, you guys need to go on and you need to find Ryan, so, and bring him home. So these guys go on and they tell this lieutenant, who has to now tell Captain Miller to go on and, of course, get Ryan. So we have Captain Miller, who is to go on this mission, and so it seems he needs to go on and have somebody transition from or to his platoon or to his people, and he is to hire Upham, who can speak German and French and can write it too. And because I guess the person who had done that before is dead, so they're going to take Upham simply because he can go on and do that. Upham is mentioning that he has never really rarely ever shot his gun before, and so Captain Miller is like, well, you went to basic, right? And you shot your gun at basic, right? And Upham is like, well, yeah. It's like, well, good enough. So Upham is to already just be kind of very frazzled and just kind of all over the place, kind of like grabbing these certain items like typewriters and all of this stuff. And Captain Miller is to say like, well, you don't need this typewriter. You need to go on and you need to just kind of like write with this pencil. Like that's all you got. So like use it wisely. So we go on, and so Captain Miller is to take his men and is to go off to start going on this mission. One thing that I forgot about, we also had the we also had the older Ryan in the beginning of this movie, who was to go by these graves, and he was to start bawling his eyes out, being very emotional. Because of course Ryan with his entire family are to go to this gravesite to like take pictures and do all this stuff as kind of like this memory of this whole event and so on and so forth. So that's what happens in the very beginning of this. So we can kind of tell that Matt Dillon's character is probably going to make it out of this in this movie. So Captain Miller is to go on with a number of his men, and so the first guy that we end up meeting here is a guy named Sergeant Hill, who of course is to go on and be going up against really just at some points a guy who's on this loudspeaker rattling off all this kind of like morality thing, as Sergeant Hill is to say, where like this guy is mentioning that the Statue of Liberty like is non-compute or doesn't exist really, and so Captain Miller's like, really, like like that doesn't sound very motivating. So we have Hill that eventually is to go on and try to make it through some of the Germans, and then he's to mention that he has like a passenger in his shoe, mentioning that he might have a rock in his shoe. So when he goes on and sits down, he ends up kind of smacking against certain pieces of wood, and so that all of a sudden breaks this wall where a number of Germans are all there, and so all the soldiers are all there, just going and like, okay, like what should we do? Like, we're having Upham like trying to tell them to like surrender their arms and so on. So, like all these guys get pelted with bullets and they get killed off here, and so we further go on, and after we have this like weird or not weird, like this transitional moment where we go on to have Sergeant Hill now like going on to possibly leading. Give me a second here. This leads after Hill. This transitions to Captain Hamill. Captain Hamill is to go on and is to know that there is a Ryan within his ranks. And so we have the soldiers who are going on and trying to find Ryan, and a guy who is Ryan, who looks like Nathan Fillion, is to come in here and come to find out like his name is James Ryan. It's like, okay, so Captain Miller is to break the news to this Ryan that his brothers are dead. And Ryan is going on, Nathan Fillion Ryan is going on saying like, well, they were in grade school, like how, like I was gonna take them fishing. And Captain Miller's like, what? Like, so like you're not James Francis Ryan. It's like, no, like I'm this other Ryan. Like I'm from Minnesota, and because their Ryan is from Iowa. And so Captain Miller's like, oh, like, god dang it. So obviously, like, we have Ryan Nathan Fillion who's crying onto his captain. It's like, fuck, like, God, we just messed up here. So we go on and like these guys have to like take like a relaxing moment. And so at one point we start to see that that Tom Hanks and or Captain Miller and Harvack are just talking about some of their like soldiers from before, like Vecchio, who was to go on and draw V's on certain people's clothing, like V for Vecchio, V for victory, and like Captain Miller is like, well, yeah, like I really go on and I really miss that guy, and like we also had the moment with I think it was when we were with Sergeant Hill that we might have gone on and lost one guy. So we had to go on, and there was a moment where there was this sniper out, and Caparzo was to try to get certain family members from out of this like completely broken down house. And so Caparzo, like they're kind of filling with this little kid, and so the kid is to be brought down with the soldiers, and then all of a sudden Caparzo is to get shot, and so then the kid goes right back up to his to her parents and slaps her father, and so we have Private Jackson, who's the sniper of the group, figuring out exactly where this sniper is, and he goes on and he takes him out, and it's like, well, okay, like we can keep going. And we have to where Caparzo is telling Mellish to try to get this note from him so he can send it home. And so the medic of this group, who is Medic Wade, is to take the note and is to rewrite it as both Captain Miller and Harvack are talking about Vecchio and all of this stuff. So we have Captain Miller who is talking to Upham, and we have it where, of course, Upham is asking Captain Miller, like, hey, like, what did you do before, like, you came here? Like, where did you live? And Captain Miller is like, oh, like, so, like, have you guys been placing bets on that information? And so Upham is like, well, yeah, it looks like it's like 300 right now. And Captain Miller is like, oh, okay, maybe we should get to a point where it's like $500. And Upham is like, well, we should probably wait till it gets to $1,000. And Captain Miller is like, well, do you think we'll be alive that long? And Upham's like, well, yeah, maybe just $500 and just then spill it. So, because Captain Miller is telling Upham that he'll tell him um, what the thing is at some point. So, but eventually he does spill the beans anyways. When they're going on and they're talking, he finally just goes on like, "Hey, like, what's the like? How big is the pot right now? 300?" And so he goes on it and tells them at some point. But I'll forget to it, so I'll get to it now. Captain Miller is to explain to everybody that he is this teacher, and that I think he was to be in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. Maybe I was wrong about that, but Captain Miller was to mention that he was this teacher. We also find out that Captain Miller, while he's talking to Horvath, he starts to have these handshakes, and Horvath is telling Miller, it's like, well, maybe being in the military just disagrees with you. And Miller's like, I don't know, it just shakes off and on. So, and eventually at some points when Captain Miller is to continue to shake throughout this movie, other soldiers are starting to spot this, and like they don't say anything, but they obviously notice it. And then Captain Miller is to just kind of put his compass away and then just kind of go on and do their job and do their business. So, moving on. And we also had like Wade, who was to give this story about his mother and how like Wade wanted to go on and like pretend he was sleeping while his mother was coming in, and maybe Wade didn't have like the best home life. I don't know. And so everybody's just kind of like sharing like stories at this moment. So we go from Captain Hamill to then transitioning uh, to Lieutenant DeWilt. Going through a lot of stuff quickly here. So, Lieutenant DeWilt. This is a spot where we go on and there is just a number of just wounded just lined up everywhere. And at this spot, it seems there is a lot of times where people just kind of like just find themselves here and are to get recruited to go off further into doing some assignment just randomly. There just seems to be a number of people who just get collected here and are put on assignment. And so Dwight is to meet up with Captain Miller and his men and is to go on and talk about this plane, and that this plane, like someone had decided to make these metal pieces within the plane that made the plane far too heavy, and so the plane ended up going down. And so Dwight is to mention about the number of guys who had all gotten killed from this plane and so on and so forth. I think he mentioned like 22 people. Like, so Dwight is to go on and is to mention, because Captain Miller and his men are talking about like, well, hey, like we have like Ryan here, and we're looking for a guy named Ryan. Like, do you know anybody? Like, should we just ask around? Like, it kind of gets to that point for Captain Miller. So DeWint is to mention that he has a big, massive amount of dog tags, and so a number of the guys are all just going through and picking all these dog tags, and they're weirdly just making fun of all them, and like they're just like pretending that they're like that. Hey, like there's a bullet hole in this dog tag. Oh wow, oh golly, like because they don't want to do any of this, and we have it at one point where and like these are all the guys who had died. And so we had like Private Jackson that was to mention like, well, hey, I think I got a winner here, and come to find out, it's like, no, like this name is Renee, like that's not Ryan. So even Captain Miller is going on there just kind of chuckling on some of the stuff that they're just kind of talking about, because it's just like, this is ridiculous. And then we just have a number of soldiers that are just looking on and just like, seriously, like that's what they're doing, just making fun of the dead. And then Captain Miller's like, oh, okay, like Ryan isn't here and here, so let's just go on and just like bring this back to this guy and just go on. And then Captain Miller is like, well, hey, how about we just go on and just ask everybody here, hey, have you seen Ryan? Have you seen a James Ryan? Let's just go on and just randomly start asking people. And come to find out, when they actually do that, it seems because they have a real problem like narrowing down where exactly this Ryan was, or where he was sent to, or like any number of problems could have happened. So Captain Miller is to go on and ask some guy who is to have a paratrooper who is to be called Michelson, who is to know a James Ryan. And so the paratrooper, who can't hear out of his ears, so like Captain Miller has to speak loudly, is to go on and tell Captain Miller that, like, yeah, I think there is a James Ryan over in this area, and that he's just kind of holding up there. And Captain Ryan's like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's where we look next. So, like, we have this kind of backing and forthing about a number of characters. Because when we go on, we have these guys consistently going through, and we have at one point where Captain Miller is to realize that there is some bunker here between them trying to get to Private Ryan, and how they just want to go on and just turn all the way, they want to just find a way around it. And Captain Miller's like, no, like, you can't do this. And what if somebody is to kind of stumble upon this and get killed? Like, I don't think I can go on and deal with that. So while we go on and have these men deal with this bunker and try to take it out, to take down these Germans, we go on and Wade ends up getting shot in the process, their medic. And so the medic is heavily bleeding out to the point where Wade is trying to tell them like what they should do. And like he's mentioning about like, well, how far, like, is there an exit wound from my back? Like, is there this? Is there that? And so Wade is really just telling them to give him more morphine, because he's just going to die at this point. So no matter how many things that they try to like put into him, like certain kind of powders and dirt and whatever for these wounds, like he's going to bleed out. No matter what they can do for pressure, what he's going to die. So Wade is just consistently telling them to give him more morphine, and then he's calling out to his mother, and then he dies. So we go on, and Captain Miller and his men are to take this bunker, and we have them go on and bury these bodies. And so one of the German soldiers, of course, was to plead for to have them not kill him. And so people are kind of backing and forthing about whether or not to kill this guy or not. And we really just have a breakdown moment with Reiben, because he's going on and he's like, you know what, like, I don't care if I'm going to be like stuck in the stockade for the rest of my life. Like, I think I'm just done with this. Like, I think I'm just done here. And Reiben is to want to walk off from this mission, because he doesn't understand like that they've lost two people trying to save this one guy, to just have him turn around and go home. Like, Reiben does not understand that, so he's frustrated and he just wants to just go home. Like he wants to go home, and everyone else just wants to go home. And that's the moment where Captain Miller is to talk about that he's a teacher, and is to just try to convince everybody to just follow him, regardless of what everybody feels. They're just going to follow him anyways because it's the right thing to do. So they go on and they don't kill the German guy that they are forcing to dig holes. So Captain Miller is to blindfold this guy and have him walk 1,000 paces, and then after that he can take off the blindfold. So at some point we go on and re-meet up with this blindfolded man in the later part of the movie, and he of course is with these other Germans trying to go on and take down the area where James Ryan is at, and is to go on and kill some of these characters. So we go on here, and so Captain Miller is to go further on to make his way to, of course, where James Ryan and all these men are. At first, they meet up with a Corporal Henderson. And so Corporal Henderson is to be with a guy named Tanabe, somewhere close to that, and James Ryan. It's like, oh, so you're Ryan, huh? And he's like, well, yeah, like James Francis Ryan, I think it's the name. And so Ryan is like, well, yeah, how did you know that? And so Captain Miller finally is to find his Ryan, and so he explains to him, as he's kind of pulling him aside, that it's like, hey, all your brothers are all dead. Like, they're all of them. And so someone's asking, like, hey, like, what's going on with Ryan? And it's like, well, yeah, like his brother's dead. Which one of them? All of them. So we have, of course, Henderson, Corporal Henderson, that's mentioning to Captain Miller that if Captain Miller and his men are going to be the cavalry or the reinforcements, like, he's going to file a report. And Captain Miller's like, yeah, I don't blame you. Because, like, they've lost quite a bit of men here, and they're just holding this bridge. And, like this is, like, crazy. Like, these guys are having to go up against tanks, and they don't have nearly enough of an arsenal to try to take down the, like, they don't have stuff that these guys have that are just kind of making their way through here. So we have Ryan, who is to find out that his brothers are dead, and so he's to want to tell Captain Ryan and his men. He's like, well, hey, like, I don't want to, like, shortchange my guys. Like, I don't want to go home. Like, why is it that I deserve to go home? Like, why can't any number of these guys all just, like, go home? They deserve to. And so of course, like, Miller is saying, it's like, well, what do we tell your mother? And Ryan is saying, it's like, well, tell my mother that I went on and I'm, like, fighting with the only brothers that I have left. Like, if you tell her that, she'll understand. Because Miller is saying, it's like, well, like, what if your mother gets another American flag? Like, what do you think she's going to think about that? So it seems that Ryan is staying here, and so now we have Miller and we have Horvath who are kind of pulling to the side after, of course, Reiben is telling Ryan here. It's like, well, hey, like we killed, or there was two men dead in our platoon, or with there was two men that died with us while trying to get to you. So like you're just gonna stay here. So Miller and Horvath turn and are kind of contemplating this of what they should do, and Horvath is thinking it's like, well, like we probably could go on and could just leave him here and say that we couldn't find him, then because he'll probably like die anyways. But like there's another like side of it too. So Miller's like, oh, okay, well, like we're just gonna stay here. We're just gonna stick this thing out. And so we have it where it seems there's a number of things coming their way. A number of German tanks, a number of mini tanks, a number of 22s that give them a really hard time to battle against. And these guys don't have like, they start to run out of ammo, they start to run out of everything. And so to where at the end of it they're attacking people with helmets and throwing guns at people because that's all they can do, because they've just like exhausted every bit of stuff that they could muster to have on them. So, and it was really also really interesting when Captain Miller was to have that baton and have that one mirror, and he had the gum, and he stuck it and had that like kind of mirror where you could see the bunker guys as they were going on, and kind of having all the guys run out, and they were doing cover fire to hopefully get one of the men to take down that bunker of those German guys. That was a pretty sweet moment also, where it was like using that whole like rear view thing so they can kind of see who was all there. So, but that happened like way earlier in the movie, but I just wanted to like remember that now and just bring that back or bring that up. So they're now like waiting around for war to come to them. And so they're strategizing, they're thinking like, well, like what can we really do to take down a tank? This seems absurd. And we have Captain Miller who brings up the whole sticky bomb thing. And is like, wait a minute, what? Like a sticky bomb? Like have you lost your mind? And Captain Miller's like, no, like it's in the manual. It's somewhere in there. And so Captain Miller is to tell people, tell all the soldiers to give up all their socks, and are to like make this like kind of grease upon these socks, and then to have this like kind of homemade fuse and to create this sticky bomb. And so the first guy who tries to put up the sticky bomb, he ends up exploding on the stake. I'm like, oh my god. Wow. So Captain Miller is like Captain Miller's describing this whole sticky bomb to everybody in detail, and so they follow his plan. And Reiben is now ticked off because it's like, oh, so now we have to even surrender our socks. It's like, yeah, do you want to die? So we go on, and we also have Upham, and Mellish is telling Upham that he's in charge of all like the ammo that Mellish and Corporal Henderson are to get, and so Mellish is depending on Upham to just kind of continue to give him bullets. And so now we go on to the cool like French song moment, and like I'll talk about the Captain Miller Ryan moment, where Captain Miller and Ryan because I've technically talked about the other the other French song moment where Upham is trying to translate the whole song, and Horham is like, well, yeah, I think I heard that part over, and Upham is like, well, yeah, because that's the chorus part, and that's when we get to the Ribin story about the whole like him trying to fit into or get a fitting for a woman. So Captain Miller and Ryan are just kind of sitting back, and Ryan is saying that he can't really like remember his brother's faces. And so Miller is like, well, like you need context. And he's like, what do you mean? And Miller's like, well, when I think of home, like I think of like the hammock that I used to be in, or I used to think of my wife and all of this and that. And so Ryan is like, oh yeah, I get what you mean. So Ryan is to have this story where like a number of his brothers were to peek into this barn to kind of snoop on their oldest brother, because their oldest brother was to try to uh, sleep with uh, Bang, let's just say, uh, some girl who wasn't exactly all that attractive. Ryan mentions it as a girl that was to be uh, in the ugly tree, and she would fall down and hit every branch of it. And so we go on and have Ryan and his brothers go on and humiliate their oldest brother, uh, and so all of a sudden that almost led to them um, like burning down the barn because of what was going on here. And so their oldest brother was to go on and try to chase after this woman to apologize to her, while also turning around and wanting to like beat beat his brothers with like a shovel or something. And so Ryan like had a really good laugh about that whole story, and like if that were to be like the one thing to probably like go on and just kind of give this guy relief. And so then Ryan is turning to Miller and he's like, well, hey, like tell me about your wife and uh that whole story you had with her. And Miller's like, no, that story's just for me, that story's mine. And Ryan's like, oh, okay. So they're waiting on, and so eventually tanks start to come. And so they're like, okay, everybody, like, get ready. And so we have all these tanks that start to come, and all these, like, little small tanks. Let me pause here for a second. All right. So we have this tank coming in, and so here's where the sticky bombs come into play. So one guy puts the sticky bomb and explodes because, like, he didn't realize how long and it was very difficult for him to figure out where to put the sticky bomb. So eventually they go on and put the sticky bombs on the sides, like right by where the wheels are kind of turning. And so the tank eventually is to stop being able to move. And so they go on and they're doing like pretty decently well trying to take down a lot of these mini tanks. We have at one point where Horvath is taking this bazooka and taking out this little mini tank and like putting to fire a bunch of German men. And so like it seems like things at first are going pretty well, and then this like 22 comes in and is just pelting these guys with bullets. And we also have Jackson, who is kind of giving them like codes of what's all to be coming. And so Jackson, because he's on this little clock tower where he's to kind of spot everything and try to take people down. So Jackson is rattling off how many tanks that they have, and that there's like 50 guys that are all coming through, and we're like, good God. So the worst thing to happen is that Miller is to say, it's like, well, hey, like, if it seems like this is all going to be too much, then we have to go and rush back to our Alamo and just blow the bridge, and that's what we're just going to have to do if things are to just not go the way that they should. So we have it where like things are going well, but then the 22 comes in and is starting to just kill everybody. We have it at one point where like the guys are trying to go on and take down like certain tanks, because the tanks are going on and blasting through some of these guys, even to the point where Jackson is to go on and start taking people down, but then all of a sudden he realizes that this tank is gearing up to shoot him, and so Jackson is trying to tell the guy that he's with to like, hey, like, get down, like, get out of here, because like this is gonna go off. And so Jackson's dead, and they lost their clock tower, or their little like bell tower. And so we have like Upham. Upham is supposed to go on and give Mellish and Henderson their ammo, but it seems at one point Upham is to eventually get scared. Like at one point, there's so many things going on, and he's just so worried about getting killed here that he just freezes. Like he is to go on and freeze at one point, and then run across the street, and then be stuck at the stairs where he's frozen, because there was a number of Germans who were to go through and be consistently throwing these these bomb like pieces to Mellish and Henderson, but they've tossed them back consistently, and so Mellish and Henderson end up getting shot up. While Mellish is shouting for Upham, like for the ammo, they're out of ammo. So Henderson gets shot in the neck, and so he's just like he's just struggling because he realizes he's gonna die, so he's gonna bleed to death, like with like his neck just bleeding out. And so all of a sudden we have Mellish, who is being attacked by this German, who I believe was the exact same guy from before, talking about that he loves America, and he was trying to sing like some like a national anthem like song, and he was trying to go on and convince everybody to like leave him alive. So this guy was going on, this German was going on, and was like wrestling with Mellish, and eventually ends up stabbing him with this knife. So the German ends up walking and making his way down the stairs, and we of course have Upham, who just stands up, and the guy just walks off, and it's like, well, I'm not going to kill this guy. So we turn around, and now we just have it where these guys are too overwhelmed. They're running out of ammo at this point. And so we run to have just Ryan, who is now just saying that they can go on and take these certain like I think it was like 60s, and kind of makeshift them into just like hitting them against like a certain metal piece, and then just like chucking them like you probably would grenades, because that's all they really have left. Like there really is no, like everybody is to just be like randomly grabbing whatever they can to just like fight against people. Like they're taking helmets, they're taking guns and just chucking them at people. And Horvath is consistently getting like pelted with bullets at some point, like bullets in the leg. He gets bullet in the back. Horvath is to use this bazooka to, at some point, try to take down. I think it was a tank, or it might have been like, it might have just been a tank of some kind. And so we have it, of course, finally, where Captain Miller, after this point, is like, hey, like, everybody make it back to the Alamo because we're just gonna blow the bridge. Like, there's like no other way that we can go on. And like, so we have everybody just running back to the Alamo, everybody who's really just left at this point. And we even get to where Ryan is almost in jeopardy, and Reiben is to just be like sitting on top of Ryan and just shooting people. And so Captain Miller runs back to Ryan and it's like, Ryan, are you okay? And Ryan's like, yeah, I'm fine. And Reiben's like, yeah, Captain, I'm okay too. As he's just shooting away because he's like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, thanks for the heads up, or thanks for the mention. So Captain Miller goes on and is to just try to blow the bridge. And at this point, everybody is just getting hit one way or the other. And Horvath eventually is to die here because like he ends up getting like hit in the kind of like the part here, like the almost the shoulder here. And he's to mention like, oh, then the wind just got knocked out of me. So Ryan is going on at some point because he has nothing as far as armory or as far as like weapons or anything goes, and he's just kind of in the fetal position, realizing that he's going to die soon because there's no other like real big guns that they have. And so Captain Miller is wanting to blow the bridge, and he's trying to go on and desperately try to like get this like item so we can blow the bridge. And all of a sudden Miller ends up getting pelted with this bullet also. And so Miller is very disoriented. We have like Reiben, and we have a number of people that are all trying to protect their captain. And Reiben is to notice that Miller is to have a wound. So Reiben is going on and desperately just trying to like fill the wound to put pressure on it. And so all of a sudden, we now finally have these like reinforcements. That we have all these planes coming in, all these bombers coming in and bombing all of the tanks and everything that is left on the German side of things. We have Upham, who was just kind of hiding out while the Germans were crossing, and Upham was to turn and was to unfreeze himself and then finally go on and put a gun to a number of these Germans to have them forcibly surrender. And the one guy had talked to Upham, and Upham had shot him. And like there was the one time where the American soldiers or the soldiers were going on, and like the Germans were trying to like surrender, and the soldier shot them anyways because like, well, what was he saying? Yeah, I think he was mentioning that he washed his hands really nice or something like that. He like look how clean his hands are, because they were going to just shoot him anyways because they don't like, there is no just surrendering, I guess, for certain people. And Captain Miller was to look at that and just be in disgust. But so as we have these bombers coming in, we have reinforcements coming in, we have Miller who turns to Ryan and is to say like, hey man, like make sure you earn it. Like earn this. Like earn it. So and right after that, Captain Miller is to die as we kind of show his hand that is to no longer shake because he's sadly dead. So Ryben and Ryan are to now go on, and I guess like have Ryan go on to go back home. And so now we get several years later where now older version of Ryan is to go to Captain Miller's grave and mention like what he had like you told me before to earn this, and like I've tried every day to go on and do what you said. And so older Miller goes on and turns to his wife and he's saying like, well, am I a good man? Like, am I this? Am I that? And so his wife is just like, yeah, like you are. And so she like turns to her family. So so yeah, like that's just kind of how the movie just kind of finishes off in my brain. So with that said, there was a lot to cover in this movie. I thought it was gonna take like 2 hours and whatever. I know there's a bunch of dialogue. I know there's a bunch of details that I skipped around about, but I tried to do this as quickly as possible, but also like to not have to go through every single little bit of something or other. Like there was just some things that just kind of were to stick out to me more than other things, but also I didn't want to take 3 hours to review this film. So yeah, like I try to do my best, but with that said, people will have their opinions, and that's perfectly okay at the end of the day because when looking at it, I can go on and probably watch this a number of different times and review it completely differently. Um, Especially with me probably wanting to go on and be like, well, like, man, I wasn't that much in detail this first time around, so maybe I'll try out go on and just be a little bit better, a little bit more, a little bit this, a little bit that. But anyways, I can say that all day. But with that said, I'm gonna just get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.